Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Second Unitarian Church. My name is Curtis Smith, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Today, we are in person at the Admiral at the Lake and the 2U Loft, and continue to meet virtually using Zoom. We ask everyone's indulgence for the complications of a three-part service. We're glad you are here, whichever way you are here. In accordance with the public health guidelines, we have moved to mask optional in the sanctuary. We will continue to pay attention to COVID numbers, and masking may become required again in order to keep us all safe. We especially welcome newcomers and visitors this morning. Finding a new community and making a new connections can be challenging. Please know that we are excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you're new to us today, please note that in the Zoom chat or mention it in person during conversation after the service. If you would like, there are blue mugs you can use to signal to others that you would like them to come up to you to say hello. If you see someone with a blue mug, be sure to say hello. Our worship today is led by Carl Kennedy, our music director, along with the 2U choir. Sue Burke is serving as the worship associate. Music is provided by 2U choir along with Reverend Karen Mooney. Our time together requires a large group of people who make possible the worship, the music, and the technical production. They are listed in the order of service, and we thank them for their ongoing service to our congregation. I do have a couple of announcements for you this morning as well. On Sunday, June 4th, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of Flower Communion ritual. We will be gathering at Horner Park for this outdoor service at our regular time. All are encouraged to bring a flower to share. Keep in mind that there is construction happening at Horner Park, and you may need an extra moment to find parking. There will be a sign for 2U, and will be southeast of the tennis courts. Following Sunday, June 11th, we'll be having our annual meeting. All are welcome to attend this meeting, though only members are able to vote on issues coming before the congregation. We will vote on the budget and the slate of new leaders put forward for the nominating committee. We will also celebrate accomplishments of the last year and give out awards. So now I welcome Sue to lead us on the call to worship.
We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but by the values we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you now, when you feel ready, to take a breath in and out. With music in our hearts, let us enter into our service together.
Good morning. My name is Carl Kennedy. My pronouns are he and him. I serve Second Unitarian Church as the director of music. Today we are celebrating the life, the work, and the ministry of former director of music and former minister of music, Mary Allen Walden. Mary Allen began her time at 2U as the pianist and eventually transitioned to the director of music job, replacing John Kelly. Her time in the role proved transformational for music at 2U. The choir soared to new heights, performing diverse, creative, and challenging repertoire, including some original pieces that you will hear today. She led the process of creating and printing 2U's very own hymnal, the Red Songbook. Completed in 1987 with a revision in 1991, the Red Songbook included some original hymns from Mary Allen, as well as some original piano arrangements that we can still see appearing note for note in our Singing the Living tradition in our gray hymnals. Her creative contributions to the church's liturgy went beyond music and include the text of our offertory words that we say that we still read every single Sunday, as do many other churches in our neighborhood or in our area. Her strong vision of the spiritual role that music plays in church led the congregation to ordain her as a minister of music in 1989, a position she held for 4 years. In 1993, she left 2U and moved back to Georgia. Unfortunately, after a long battle with cancer, Mary Ellen Walden passed away on August 22nd, 1997. In today's service, you will hear some of her original music, still in its handwritten scores that we have in our music library. And you will also hear reflections from longtime 2U members who sang under Mary Ellen's leadership. Our first piece was a staple of the choir's repertoire during her tenure and will feature the Reverend Derek Jackson. So please enjoy Mary Ellen Walden's Be Patient.
We have such an amazing choir to listen to and to celebrate on this Music Sunday. I'm so glad for us to be able to worship and have a service that's a little different than a regular Sunday morning. In just a moment, Ryan here in the sanctuary and Harris at the Admiral will light our chalices, the symbol of our faith. And we light our chalices this morning in celebration of the music ministry that Mary Ellen Walden gifted to our church and to Unitarian Universalism. May these flames light the way towards a life filled with the gift of music.
Now please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
Please continue to stand and join me in reciting our covenant. The words are on your screen. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion.
You can be seated. Yes, thank you. We're doing things a slightly different order. Don't worry, we'll get to Spirit of Life. But first, I would like to invite those young in age or young in heart to join me up at the podium for our Time for All Ages. If we have any young folks. So today, as you heard, we're talking about a wonderful musician named Mary Ellen Walden. And one of the things that she did here, and one of the things that I do here, is we conduct the choir. Have any of you ever seen, maybe outside of here, have any of you ever seen someone conduct before? Have you ever seen a conductor? Sometimes they're in front of large groups of instruments. Sometimes they're in front of people singing. And the conductor's job is to really hold everybody together and keep everything on track. I also heard a definition for what a conductor does from Glenn Thomas Rideout, who's another amazing conductor and UU musician. And I really appreciate his perspective, and I'd love to share that with you. What he says is that a conductor is really an advocate. And conductors have to advocate for our musicians. A conductor has to advocate for the composer of the piece, so the music itself, and make sure that the music is right and that whoever wrote the music, that their intentions come through. The conductor has to advocate, has to speak out and look out for the audience and the congregation to make sure that their needs are met. And I really like that. I thought that was a really great way to think about what a conductor was. And so Mary Allen was a wonderful conductor, and she was also a wonderful advocate for music in church. She was a wonderful advocate for Unitarian Universalism, and ultimately became a wonderful advocate for what ministry is and what it means to be a minister. But the nuts and bolts of a conductor is waving our arms. That's really what's up. So I would like to teach you, if you guys want to come up here and stand next to me and be conductors, I'm going to teach you a little bit of conducting, and then we're going to conduct the congregation in singing Spirit of Life. So come on up. We're going to do a little conducting. You can face, and if you want to stand and look at the congregation, you can do that. If you want to face me, that's totally fine too. So one thing about being a conductor is we want to stand very tall and seem very important. And so we're going to learn 4 arm movements, and they're very simple, and I'm so happy that the layout of the loft actually works out with this. So the first thing we're going to do, and you are all, of course, welcome to do this as well. First thing we're going to do is move our arms down to the floor. Now we're going to go to the door. Now we're going to go to the window. And now we're going to go to the ceiling. And we're going to do that in order. So we're going to go floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door. Let's start. Yeah, that's the wrong tempo. The wrong tempo. We're going a little faster. See, as a conductor, you have to advocate for the right tempo. One more time. So we'll floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door. Here we go. Door, floor, door, window, ceiling, floor, door, red. Spirit of light, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Now I invite you to sing our children out as they go to their classes with Go Now in Peace.
You didn't know you were getting a lesson in conducting this morning, but so lucky you are. So each year, we all make a commitment to our church, a pledge, and this is still the end of pledge season. So if you haven't made your pledge for next year, you still can. But in addition to this pledge that we make each year, we take a collection each Sunday so that we can share with those who are doing justice work well beyond our church walls. We are still figuring out the best way to get ourselves to pass around the collection plate again, but we haven't yet gotten there. And so soon it will happen. But you can still give by using your phone, and this is a great time in the service to take your phone out, and you can follow the text prompts that you'll see on your screen shortly, or that you can find in your order of service. For the month of May, we are sharing our plate with the Nicholas Lee Foundation, and this morning we have some words from Karen.
Good morning. My name's Karen Goldner. My pronouns are she, hers. Cassandra has been trying to get on and has tech problems. I want to thank our tech team for all of their efforts to try to make that happen, but I think it's just not going to. So the Nicholas Lee Foundation is a grassroots foundation that actually Cassandra founded after her husband passed away as the first person in Cook County Jail to die from COVID. The main thing that the foundation does is buy bottled water to take to Stateville and some of the other prisons in Illinois, because apparently we as taxpayers aren't able to pay for them to have safe water. And so they've had, there's all, legionnaires and other kinds of issues. And so, water is life, right? And the interdependent web of life and our respect as you use for all human beings. Your contribution is very much appreciated, and thank you very much.
Now, I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. The words are printed in your order of service and are on the screen. This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
I want to invite you, wherever it is that you are here in the 2U loft, gathered at the Admiral, maybe you're at home, join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation. And let's begin by breathing together. Try relaxing the muscles in your shoulders. Release the tension that gets built up in your neck. And unclench your beautiful jaw. And just rest into your sacred body, into this sacred time. Loving Divine, we begin in thanks. Thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of our earth, and the strength of this, our beloved community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family and ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We're with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is the care of children, we are with you. Pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty, for our friends living in tents under bridges. We are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way, especially those navigating the scary times of gun violence. We pray for our planet and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate chaos. As war continues to rage on, we pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our world. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are truly blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. Into this, our shared silence across space, I invite you to speak the name of anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of our community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those named and unnamed, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen, and blessed be. During our ritual of lighting candles for joys and concerns, we're going to navigate our space safely today, where it's a little different than usual. But as you come forward, I invite you to light a candle. And as you end your time of contemplation and candle lighting, I invite you to use the hand sanitizer that's available. For those of us at the Admiral, I invite you to come forward and take a pebble from one bowl, hold it tightly, putting your energy into the stone, and then knowing your joys and sorrows to be shared by this community, let it go lightly into the other bowl. For those of us on Zoom, join us by sharing your joys and concerns in our chat window, and I will light a candle here to represent your celebrations and sorrows. You may come forward. These are shared joys, celebrations, concerns, and sorrows close to our hearts.
My name is Jonathan Dunmore, and my pronouns are he and him. Mary Allen Walden, even her name was lyrical. In the 13 or so years I had the privilege of working with her and calling her a friend, I found her to be a loving, thoughtful, and compassionate soul who tried her best to give aid and comfort to all she met. During her time here, I heard many stories of how she would sit quietly through committee or board meetings while people argued over how something or other should be done, only to eventually chime in with a, well, I think both ideas have merit, but have you considered doing it this way? With all parties admitting that they hadn't looked at it at the problem from that perspective. Her opinions were so respected that, as Carl pointed out earlier, she was eventually raised to the position of music minister and ordained by this congregation as the Reverend Mary Allen Walden. But for me, she has always been a musical inspiration and the first of a long line of talented accompanists who eventually became talented music directors at 2U. When she was here, and back in the day, the choir would often wear whatever they felt like wearing that particular day and sit in the congregation. And when it was time to sing, we'd come up and put ourselves in position and then begin singing. When asked about this once by someone, the Reverend would say, well, I see this as a symbol of the congregation as being a part of the choir being part of the congregation, and them coming up this way, well, I just think it's great because it's an image of the congregation coming together in music to form a choir. Now, when I first arrived here in 1980, I thought of church music, in this church at least, as primarily needing to be classical or sacred or reverent, and with occasional nods to folk. But when she became music director, she instilled in us the thought that any kind of music was spiritual so long as the message of the song fit the service. During her tenure, we still did sacred, classical, and folk, but also began doing more gospel-inspired music, more popular songs, more avant-garde songs, as well as Broadway songs and irreverent comedy songs, just because they fit a particular mood or message. One example of the latter was Good King Kong by P.D.Q. Bach. And Google if you're not familiar with either. Spirituality was also very important to her approach to music. Once when I was trying to come up with a more Unitarian-friendly version of the old spiritual Ain't It That Good News for a service, I got stuck on whether to use Open My Mind or Open My Heart for the chorus. So I asked for her opinion. She told me, well, using Open My Mind is okay, but it sounds too cold and intellectual to me. I think that Open My Heart feels more warm and spiritual. After thinking it over, I took her advice and went with heart over mind. And And yes, she meant a lot to both the church and myself, so much so that at a farewell celebration, I put together a little piece of music and performed it for her. And I'm ending with that. Mary Ellen Walden, won't you please play sweet music for me? 'Cause Mary Ellen Walden, when you smile, when you play, you set all my spirits free. And whenever you're about, when the people scream and shout, you say everything will turn out fine. Mary Ellen Walden, you chase away the blues with everything you do. We really do love you. Dum dum bow, dum dum bow, bow.
Hello, good morning, Second Unitarian. My name is Karen Mooney, not Moody, though, you know, who knows, some days. That's probably true too. I go by the pronoun she, her. I'm glad to be here with you. I have, in case there are people who have challenges with sight, I have purple hair and a really bright blue shirt on. I'm about 5'5", that's my story, I'm sticking to it. And my driver's license says that I'm 200 pounds, and I'm sticking with that too, thank you very much. I remember the first time that I walked through those doors to join the choir rehearsal here at 2U. Mary Ellen was down at the piano, and as is true with choirs, people were greeting each other, saying hi, all that stuff. Mary Ellen was welcoming, but that was then what she was. That was who she was. After several rehearsals with quips about creativity and entreats that our voices embody the whole, I found myself thinking, you're cool. At a party sometime that fall, we struck up a deeply existential conversation, and that was it. We were friends. I grew to love a person who had faith. Faith because she knew what she believed in and what she valued in the world. Here are some things you may or may not know about Mary Ellen. She was a small person, maybe 5 foot. Her hand did not reach that coveted octave reach that pianists apparently need to have in order to soar to the heights of pianodom. She threw the I Ching every single day. She folded in the sides of candles, large candles, so that all the wax would melt. She struggled with her relationship with her mother. Mary Ellen was one of the first ministers of music to be ordained by the Unitarian Universalist faith. She wrote the basis of those offertory words that we read every week, not the fullness of them, they were changed a little later on, in a response to a conflict in the congregation. I love that our covenant that we read, that you read every week, acknowledges that conflict is part of what? The human experience. Thank you very much. She was from Georgia and always retained that slight accent. Mary Ellen was diagnosed with breast cancer twice. It's not likely I'm going to get through this without crying, and here I am telling you about it as I'm doing it, so there we go. She was told by her financial advisor, who was a member of the church who was helping her out, to buy sturdy bags. At least 10 people who knew her from this community surrounded Mary Ellen in love as she passed away in 1997. She didn't need sturdy bags. You see, she had created and woven a web of community so strong that it held her as she made her way into the great whatever. She was a talented pianist, really, really talented. She found her way into this church in the 1970s, and then when beloved John Kelly left, the community of the choir said, "Why don't you try that out?" And she was like, why don't you try that out? And she was like, ah. And she did. And she became this conductor that was able to bring out in the choir and in individuals within the choir what it was that music was, not just on the page, but in your body. She was one of the most spiritual people that I have ever met. She was connected to something bigger. Maybe the word God, maybe the ground of all being, maybe the great whatever. She was not ashamed in this hallowed hall of humanism to affirm that connection and to make it known. Her presence made room. It just made room for the many creative people and people who were connected, though we didn't have the language to belong here, including myself. In a sermon near the end of her time here, she preached about that connection and what it meant to be able to hold a tension of faith. You see, she knew that she was connected. And she also knew that there were plenty of people who did not believe in God, and they were right as well. What a holy, untenable stance to take. Looks like they're different. Maybe they're not. What Mary Ellen was living within that tension of faith was seeing what is, creating what might be, and believing something from all of that. And that was faith in her life. Those spaces where we make meaning It's not just the seeing, it's not just the creating, it's not even just the believing, it's all of those together that bring us into a cyclone of faith. She told this story about a person who struggled, a person who could not seem to make the connections that they wanted, could not make progress towards the goals that they had set when they were a youth, could not find a fit in any work or community. So desperate in life that they traveled around the country looking for an answer. One morning, as they sat in a square somewhere, anywhere, they asked for a sign. Anybody here ever done that? Why they should keep going at all. Did I mention they were desperate? Suddenly, a flock of doves lighted onto the bench where they sat, as if in an answer that someone had known that they were asking. And the doves came to say, yes. The meaning that person crafted? To live is to be part of something that's larger, to make room for those who travel with, to compromise and to take from what is given, to hold on to the oneness of who you are while existing in the larger whole. The person moved off changed. Who wouldn't be? Believing in their hearts of hearts that they had been visited by something. They were, dare I use the word, saved. They saw, they experienced, they made meaning, they had faith. They were an example of what Mary Ellen was entreating us to do all the time. For faith is nothing more than believing what you have found, and it is nothing less. When we ordained Mary Ellen Walden, apparently in 1989, I wrote 1992 in my script, we knew that we were doing the right thing. We were heady. We saw a minister and we bestowed that authority on the Reverend Mary Ellen Walden. We affirmed her connection and the inspired creative spirit the connection endorsed in this place. Right? Creative people were welcomed here, were called in, were desired. And we did it not understanding that assumptions would come along with that title. You see, a very creative person came into our midst after Mary Ellen was ordained. She loved that creativity, but this person was also violent. In a time when our minister, Charlie Cast, was on sabbatical, this person caused harm. And actually, the truth is that they were causing harm before that, but we chose to believe that someone fell. Be careful what you believe. There was an incident here. Fists met flesh. The board acted quickly. Heated conversations were had in many rooms, on many phones. What does it mean to be a minister? How do you lead well in the midst of creative spark that may be too large to our body to hold? Who has a say in what happens? Who has the final say? What is the minister's role? What is a minister's role in a community in church? In my Wayback Machine, I imagine that there are answers. But few exist today beyond this. We should have had those conversations before something happened. We see what is, we create. That believing part and figuring out what we believe is important for faith. I wish to acknowledge that every spark of creativity can light a fire. And that sometimes if that fire is not tended or held accountable to the whole, it can become an inferno. I wish to acknowledge that ordination affirms for others that a person holds that connection to the larger whole. even as we affirm the sparks of wisdom and wonder and creativity before us. But it is why ordination sets ministers apart. Our call is to hold this dichotomy that all in community can wrestle and thrive. It is ours to hold that faith and to hold you all in the spirit of who you are and the community that together you create. A minister is not just a leader of their part of the institution, they are the leader or a leader of the whole. Ministers holding that tension of faith while journeying. It is listening to those voices, even in the midst of budget meetings and cleanup days, right? Being a minister for creative people then includes setting some boundaries for the whole within that creation, even as it is brought forth. It would be difficult for me to tell you how grateful I am to have known and been befriended by the Reverend Mary Ellen Walden, somebody who could hold that. She taught me to live in that tension between what is being created, and what I believe. She taught me to live in faith. Her life, her leaving, taught me to take time and give respect to the things I put my faith in. It is why I am called to communities of faith like this, because in this place, we are held accountable to the creations we claim. We are held accountable to the truths and the faith that allow us to live our best selves. Her wisdom drew me into ministry, where I learned to hold that tension between faith and the world. One final thought. That person who was visited by doves, the rest of the story. At 11 a.m. the next day, the doves came and lighted on that bench, as they did every morning. But the person wasn't there to see it. Did it matter? Be careful, be care-filled in your answer, for your answer is where you find your faith. Name a name, hidden and shown, knowing and known glory jargon and grumbling, speaking the truth that refreshes and frees. Name a name, hidden and shown, knowing and known, Gloria. Midwife of changes, skillfully guiding, drawing us out through the shock of the new. Woman of wisdom, deeply perceiving, never deceiving, freeing and leading in all that we do. Name a name, hidden and shown, knowing and known, Gloria. Daredevil gambler, risking and loving, giving us freedom to share our dreams. Life-giving loser, wounded and weeping, dancing and leaping, sharing the caring that heals and redeems. Name unnamed, hidden and shown, knowing and known, Gloria. Name hidden.
Oh, wow. I get to follow Karen Mooney. Wish me luck. I'm Jim Simonis, pronouns he, him, his. I'd like to briefly share some remembrances of Mary Ellen Walden, as she was a very significant person in my life as well as 2 years. She was from Augusta, Georgia, but came to Chicago because of a great disappointment. She was studying music at Indiana University and was counting on taking a master's class with a well-known pianist professor there. When she didn't get it, she fled Indiana, and like so many others in the late 60s, ended up in Chicago's Old Town. I recall her saying that she spent a lot of time on the steps of the Moody Bible Institute. She was working at a car dealership when she met Don Wilson, who was the founder of what he liked to call the 2U Sandlot Choir. He invited her to come to 2U and check it out. She became the choir's pianist, working under the then director, John Kelly. This arrangement worked well for a few years until John Kelly suffered a personal crisis and left suddenly. Mary Ellen stepped up to this crisis situation, and for quite a few years after that, she was this church's beloved music director. As has already been said, aside from her ample music talent, she brought a component to her work that was so special. For a congregation to ordain a music minister is quite unusual, but with Mary Ellen, it just seemed to be a natural progression of all the work that she was doing here. I considered myself very fortunate that I was able to participate in a spiritual intensive group that she organized and led. It was called the Elephant Club, based on the popular story of the blind man and the elephant. In the spirit of the story, we were encouraged to tell what part of our spiritual life elephant we were in touch with and how it felt to us. While in her musical life, she was a talented pianist, writer, and lyricist, her real forte was as an arranger. She really knew how to break down a music piece into its component parts and put it back together in a new way that breathed life into the piece. I consider myself very fortunate that she did an arrangement of one of my songs that I had given her to play as part of an Easter service. Now, when she played the arrangement back for me, she was very concerned because she was well aware of how some people don't like others to mess around with their sacred works of art. Fortunately, I was able to see the magic that she had worked on my piece and that it had indeed breathed new life into it. Mary Ellen worked with other UU musicians to bring our gray hymnal to life. If you check out the back of the gray hymnal under the index of composers and authors, you will see that she has 6 arranger credits. But the great gift that Mary Ellen left with us, however, is the Red Songbook that she compiled for us, consisting of 61 songs that are all meant to be sung. It's not hard to figure out that one of her favorite authors was Carolyn McDade. Mary Ellen included 7 of her songs in the Red Hymnal. One of them you may have heard of. It's called Spirit of Life. I'd like to finish by recalling an interaction that I had with Mary Ellen. One time she approached me and said, "Jim, I need to talk to you. I need to know why you're always coming late to our choir rehearsal. You are an important member of our choir, and we really need you to come here on time." She continued, "Usually, when somebody does something like this, there is something going on that is upsetting them, and they show their displeasure by doing something like always coming late. If you have some problem with this choir, I want to know about it, and I want to do what's necessary to help you get over it." I replied, "No, I love the choir, but since I walk to church, I've fallen into the habit of leaving when I should be at church instead of when I need to leave to be on time. But I know how to subtract time. I can fix it, I promise." She just smiled and said, "Thank you, Jim." A few months later, after I was now managing to come to choir on time, I thought about this interaction that I had had with her, and I played it over again in my mind, and I came to the conclusion that this woman really knows how to handle men.
Choir, I'm going to need you to stand back up. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn. This hymn is from the Red Hymnal and is an original of Mary Ellen Walden's. Before we sing it, I'd like to give a little context that I learned recently. The title of this, Begin Again, this was written and performed at the opening of 2U's new sanctuary, the last one. So I think it's very appropriate that we're bringing this hymn back now, and hopefully we'll sing it in our new sanctuary. A sapling grows from a fallen tree that once spread leaves to sun, and now its strength and place it yields to life that's just begun. So we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms are the flag will be told. It's old, but it's new again. So we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms are old. The cycle be told. It's old, but it's new again. Waving beat a house stands tall that once rode river waves. It's wood of flatboat settlers lounge to seek their friends and days. So we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms unfold. The cycle we told. It's old, but it's new again. So we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms unfold. The cycle we told. It's old, but it's new again. I've never walked this path before, and yet it's mine, I know. This springs from many paths I've walked. It's opens where I go, so we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms unfold. The cycle retold. It's old, but it's new again. So we begin again. It's time to begin again. New forms unfold. The cycle retold. It's old, but it's new I invite you to put your hands on your heart or clasp hands with those who you're sharing your life with. Our words of benediction come from the foreword to the Red Songbook. Mary Ellen writes, "A church that has its own well-worn songs has spiritual wealth that cannot be measured. I will tell you why this is true. The secret is this: there is nothing to be gained from our singing together but the sheer joy of it. There is no other reason, no profit, no fame, no achievement, no betterment. Think of it. So this songbook is, you see, a labor of love offered to you for the sheer joy of it." Amen and blessed be it. Go in peace.